Thank you all for being here so bright and early. I am so happy to be here today with these panelists. We had dinner last night and stayed up way too late talking, so we're all very tired. But I would like to start with, we have some slides of their work, and as each slide plays, I just wanted the panelists to talk about why they do what they do. Like all of you, they started out wanting to work for themselves, having ideas, and they sort of honed their ideas into the businesses that have become successful and worked for them and made a difference to so many other people. So in the field, the wide field of what they could do, I'd like them to talk about a little bit about their aesthetic and why they make what they make. So we'll start with Kristen.
Yeah, so I'm Kristen Baird. My degree is in metals and jewelry, and I started my business partially as a two-faceted bridal line as well as a resort wear line. I specialize in sterling silver, high carat gold, and platinum, along with diamonds and gemstones. Very organic style, and everything is handcrafted here in Savannah. So
that's great. Eny?
Hi guys, my name is Eny Lee Parker. I do furniture, lighting, some jewelry as well, and I focus in ceramics, which kind of organically happened while I was at SCAD. I try to do a lot of custom pieces for interior design clients and direct clients, and I think that's like what my main business is.
Great. Katy?
I'm Katy Skelton. I graduated with an M.F.A. in furniture design in 2011, and I started my furniture company in 2012 in New York, and we focus on lighting and furniture, and everything is domestically made, and we try to use sustainable materials as well as socially responsible manufacturing practices.
Hi, I'm Eleanor Turner. I was a 2008 fashion graduate, and I worked for companies like Tommy Hilfiger, Tory Burch, J. Crew most recently before I quit to found Argent, which is a functional women's work apparel company. And I just left that in the fall to found something new that's launching in October.
And it's secret, but we get to find out a little bit about it later. So I just wanted to start by asking everyone here, a show of hands, who wants to be an entrepreneur and run their own company someday? It's very cool. I'm also going to ask that question at the end, and we'll see if anything has changed. But I wanted to start by asking the panelists, and not everybody has to answer, just kind of whoever feels like it. What is the best part? We'll start by giving the people what they want. What is the best part about working for yourself?
I think probably my favorite part is being able to have a flexible schedule so that I can, I think ideally I would have time to work on my hobbies, and that's how I think it's going to happen in my head, but really I work all the time. But the idea of being able to set my own schedule and also to be able to create whatever I want to create and not have to answer to like a corporate structure, I think that kind of freedom creatively is really appealing.
I think my favorite part about starting companies and being an entrepreneur is you grow geometrically. Like, you do things that you never thought you would do. And you learn how to be scrappy, and you learn how to do it yourself. And the experience that you get from this, it's better. I mean, in my opinion, it's better than going to get an MBA at school.
I totally agree with that. You learn all the tricks of the trade. You're constantly learning new things every day, which, if that's what you enjoy, it's great. And also the flexible schedule is fantastic, even though flexible doesn't mean you clock out at 5 o'clock, ever. But no, it's a fantastic way to be able to run your business, but also have a personal life outside of that.
I think for me, one thing that I am being able to experience is that if you have a story, like a personal story, and you feel very strongly about it, you can share that. You can voice your, beliefs, and if you can do that through a business, I think it's totally worth it. Anything, all the scrappy activities that you have to do that you don't expect, it makes everything worth it.
On the flip side, what are some maybe unexpected challenges, if you just had to give one or two things that, I won't say the worst parts, but what are parts that maybe you didn't think about right off the top that aren't as great about being an entrepreneur?
I was going to say, contrary to popular belief, I don't work in my pajamas all day, and I don't get to just like hang out and chill. And it can be kind of lonely sometimes, which is why it's so important to find your community and your network of other entrepreneurs in different fields or other business people to keep yourself plugged in, because it can be an isolating position at times.
Yeah, and to add to that, it does get lonely at times, but also sometimes you just want to be around people who you respect and you can learn from, like other experts in the field. And so I would say, like, you know, when you're running your own business, you're the one that seemingly has all the answers. And so developing a network of people that you can call or people that you can just go hang out with and be around, to sort of, you know, not feel so alone or not have to feel like the expert all the time is really, really valuable.
We were talking about mentorship backstage, so I'll just skip to that question now. It seems like everyone here had a mentor, or maybe more than one, that played a really, really valuable role in their business growth, and also just their personal sanity as a business grows. I mean, I think that that's a huge part of nurturing an entrepreneur's life and mind is having those mentorship touchstones. Can we talk about how to get a mentor? And it's not just emailing someone and saying, will you be my mentor?
It starts with SCAD. I mean, like, I just recently left my grad studies, and all the professors that I had were incredible. You can build really healthy, good relationships with the faculty here. Katy was actually she still is my mentor as well. She helped me a lot with business and just like a lot of things that you don't think people can share, but she does. It's really important to surround yourself with people who are honest and they're not gonna think you as a competitor, or they just want you to flourish, and vice versa.
And I think it's also important that you find a mentor that not necessarily is doing exactly what you want to do. I think it's really valuable to find someone who has experience in a lot of things that you don't have experience in. I'm very lucky to have two mentors. One of them has been a businessman for a very long time, and he doesn't have any experience in the furniture industry, but his business knowledge has been just so helpful. And at times you just need validation to know if you're doing the right thing. Are these numbers good? Are these numbers bad? And that kind of helps you, because I didn't have a background in business. And there are a lot of ways to find mentors. I agree, I don't think you should just email someone and say, will you be my mentor? You have to be able to have a friendship and you build on that, but you can also make contacts anywhere. And there are all different types of mentors, and there are sponsors, which are just people who support you, and they might not talk to you on a day-to-day basis and answer questions for you, but they can just support you and put you in touch with other people. And then your mentors are people who you can go back to, and like I give all of our financials to my mentors just because they have background knowledge of business. And so you have to be willing to be able to share, but there does have to be a personal connection. You can't force that.
Yeah, and I also would recommend reaching across and down. I think so many people only look up, and you have so many resources, like in this audience alone. So look across, look down, and lift each other up.
And on the topic of sharing, we were discussing last night at dinner when to talk about your brand, how to talk about your brand. One of the sort of most across-the-board things about SCAD students that I've noticed and experienced is that you all graduate really comfortable with announcing who you are and what you do. And that's pretty priceless, and it's not something that is the same at other universities and in other places. At the same time, there's a way to announce what you do, and there's a time to announce what you do. For instance, Eleanor is starting a new company right now, and she will barely tell me anything about it. But there's a reason for that. It's because it's not time, and because there's a certain amount. I don't know if it's to build mystique or anything about that, but I don't know. It's working. Now I'm way more interested. But I was hoping that you could talk about sort of when to share and the ways to sort of build that story the way you have.
Yeah, totally. So, I mean, there's a bit of strategy that goes into this, right? Like, there's press strategy, there's, investment strategy. The thing that hit me, does anybody listen to How I Built This? Yeah.
You should all listen to that if you want to be an entrepreneur. It's great.
If you guys are interested in being entrepreneurs, you absolutely should listen to this podcast. It is fantastic. Sarah Blakely talks a lot about how in her early days of founding Spanx, she kept her idea very close to the chest. She talks about when she did share it, that some people would discourage her, tell her that, well, why isn't someone else doing this? Why aren't the big boys doing this? You know, if you start this company, you're just gonna get eaten alive. That's all really discouraging. When you are gonna start something, you have to be so convicted in what you're doing and so committed to it that in the early days, when it's just an idea and it's sort of being shaped and formed, you don't want to tell a lot of people about it. You need to establish your conviction and establish the idea. And you know, where I am in this process is, you know, I've come into a concept and I'm developing the business plan, and now it's time for me to seed a little bit. So that's where I will tell you guys about, you know, what the general idea of it is. But there are some innovative things we're doing around business plan. There's some innovation around fabric and textiles, and those are the things that I don't want to talk about yet because, you know, there are people who are ahead of me, and if they get any sort of inspiration from the things that I say, they could easily steal it. So it's all about being very smart and strategic about how you roll these things out.
I'm like the opposite, though. I have no mystery. I like post anything that I might be working on, and I just like completely forget about that part. But I think it's also because it depends. I like completely see that. I think the business that I have is because I'm completely new. I don't have the extensive like experience that you have in business and working for big brands. But so much of like what I did was created something, took a nice photo, posted it, and saw like to see like how people responded to it. So I often kind of explain how the work that I do and the products that I want to develop, it's like the wet toilet paper that you throw on the ceiling and see if it sticks. That's kind of like, I feel like that's my day-to-day, like weekly, how I come up with products.
Well, we also talked about, I think everyone or most of these people, their business is their name. Something you don't, I mean, it might seem totally organic and obvious. I am a person, I am making something, I'm gonna name my business my name. But can you talk about kind of the significance of that, the challenges of that, the fact that your reputation is now linked to what you make. Do you want to start, Kristen?
Absolutely. So I feel like for me it was a very easy decision to make it my name because I am the main designer. But at the same time, I have to be so protective of everything I do, whatever I put on social media, whether it's personal, private, public, whatever, comes back to my name, which comes back to my brand, which comes back to everything that I say about my brand. So it's very important to be protective of that, because if I post a picture, then a client might see it and say, ooh, I don't really agree with what she's saying. And with the clientele that I deal with, it's super important to be very kind of streamlined. So I think that it's a purposeful decision to name, per my name, but it also bears a lot of responsibility too. So, and for quality standards and everything within the jewelry industry, it's very small. So if I had a really big quality issue, that comes back on me. And if I tried to open another business under my name or under some sort of part of my name, that could be an issue. So it kind of, there's a lot of responsibility there, but it's good.
And I think it's important to note that, especially today, with all of the social media that's out there, you have to, if you're trying to build a brand and it's your name, you need to be really aware of everything that you're posting. So when I started my business, I just switched my personal Instagram account to my business account. And then I realized that all of my clients were like seeing pictures of my honeymoon, and I felt like that wasn't really telling my brand story. And so I went back and I kind of cleaned everything up, and now the way I mix that together is I show a little bit of behind the scenes of what's going on in our business, how we're building things. I tell a tiny personal story, mainly through my dog, just of like, he's our shop dog. This is kind of like a fun part of our Instagram stories usually. But I keep my personal life a little bit closer because it is my name. I want to be separate from my company. When I'm at trade shows, when I'm on panels, when I'm speaking to people, like, I am representing my brand, and you have to think of everything that you say. But I also want to have a separate life that's not completely out there. But like Eny was saying, like, Eny posts a lot of personal things and is very open. It's all about your brand. If that's the brand you want to have, if that's your personality, then that's fine. But just realize that, like, your customers are going to dig so deep into your social media. Like, people will like something from 5 years ago. And that's really crazy to me that someone scrolled all the way through to see that stuff. Right. So when you get to that point, just be really aware of what you're putting out there.
I have a question. Would you guys, with hindsight, would you name your businesses your name again? You would?
I would.
Yes.
And he's not sure.
Yeah, I don't think I would have. I got married, so I gained the Parker, and it sounds really cool, but I don't think I would have named it after my name.
Well, and I think here, as anywhere, authenticity really matters. So, I mean, it's not forced. It's organic, which is why you can keep up with it. If that wasn't authentically who you were to share that much, it would be such a slog, and it would be really forced and a lot to keep up with. But it's probably not as much for you because that's actually how you are.
I mean, hopefully, I don't know, because, I mean, I'm so new to this, but a lot of times I'll get a text from my husband, which I think the marriage is, like, probably one of the aspects that I try to post the least, or at least share the least. But I share a lot about my friends, and I have a bad mouth, so I sometimes use bad words. So I get kind of called out on that, because I will do that on my stories, and my husband's like, "Is that a good idea?" And I was like, "Well, too late." So I don't know. We'll see what happens. I haven't been, in trouble
There's
yet.
no right path to entrepreneurship or branding, but I think everyone here worked for other companies before or concurrently at the beginning as they were starting their own brand. So I wanted to talk about the value of that. Would you advise that path for others? Would you almost make it mandatory if it was up to you? Sort of, what's your take on that?
1,000%. Go out and get some real world experience. When I look back at my career trajectory, I started in the PR department at Tommy Hilfiger. And this was 2008. There were no jobs. The economy just crashed. I had to get really creative and scrappy about how I solidified a position. And so I started in the PR closet. I was like tracking samples for Tommy Hilfiger. I left to get a freelance position at Isaac Mizrahi, and then I got a call from the PR director at Tommy saying, "When are you coming back?" And I said, "Not until you pay me." And I went back because they were launching the runway collection. And I didn't know this at the time, but runway collections for big brands are oftentimes run by PR and marketing departments. They're a PR stunt, basically. And so I went and I was the assistant with the top 4 heads of Tommy International to relaunch this runway collection. And in hindsight, that was just like a well-funded startup. The experience was incredible, and the access to top-level management at the company taught me so much about leadership and, just about the business side of this. So, that turned into design roles at Tory Burch and then later J. Crew, where I learned a ton from Mickey Drexler. I mean, he's an incredible CEO, former CEO. And so I think getting that real-world experience was so important to leaving the job at J. Crew to found a company. I mean, I was ahead of so many others that had tried to do it out of the gate from graduation. So I would absolutely recommend getting some real-world experience and some not necessarily corporate either. Like, you can go work for a startup, but it's invaluable, priceless.
Absolutely. And I think the really important thing is no matter what job you get, go talk to everyone in every department. Before I started my own company, I worked at a furniture company in Austin, Texas, and I would just go over to the girl who did all of our pricing, and that's how I learned about margins, and that's how I learned about oh, you should be, marking up your product this much, and what you can expect as far as like losses and overages, all of those things. Like, I had no idea what that meant because I started in a sales role and I worked my way up to be a product designer without any experience doing product design. And the way I did that was just by finding out what software they used, teaching myself the software, and just designing stuff and giving it to them and saying, I would love to do this. I would love to design if you want to, take a look at these. And I ended up becoming their lead product designer in 2 years. And so just get your foot in the door anywhere, get that work experience, talk to everybody, learn about the marketing, learn about pricing, learn about operations. And then whenever you are ready to start your own company, you've just spent all that time being paid on someone else's dime to learn that information. It's super valuable.
Also, you don't have to wait until you graduate. Like, I would do it now. If you want to know how, what running a business is like, try having a part-time job and juggling your 3 classes term. If you think that you don't have enough time, for a midterm project or finals, you will get very efficient and smart about being able to juggle your side job and those classes. I mean, it's a lot of work hours and a lot of tedious work, but you get smart as you go. Yeah.
And my favorite thing to tell people is that running a business is feeling like you are in the middle of finals all of the time. So
Every
just get
day,
used to that.
Every single day. Yeah, I would say the same. I did an internship while I was in school with a goldsmith, and it was fantastic. I learned so much about production, about running a studio, about dealing with customers. I got really hands-on experience because it was a small studio, so I was her only helper. So that was more of the jewelry side, and then I also worked Lululemon. So don't discount jobs that may not be completely your field. I learned about retail and customer service and
Customer
products.
service. Oh
Yeah,
my God.
customer service. It's everything. So don't discount certain jobs that I'm in this field and that's not really my field. It applies if you want it to. So if you want to learn, you can figure out how to apply it to whatever you want to do in the future.
And don't let anything be beneath you.
Yeah.
Whenever you are working for someone, sweep the floor, get them coffee, and then design some furniture. Do whatever it is, because that's going to show them that you are willing to work really hard and that you care about their company. But it's also going to give you those skills.
And read the room too. I would say, there's always time to ask your question. There's a right way to ask your question though. So I was talking to Eny yesterday, and someone said something, and she said, I don't know what that one thing is. And it was important for you to say that because we talked about it, we clarified it, and we kept going. That wouldn't always work. If you're talking to, if it's a more senior situation, or you're, the first magazine internship I ever had, there was another intern with me who would write notes in every meeting, and I thought he was listening more diligently, or a better intern. And I asked him what it was later, and it was all the things he didn't know, and then he would go and Google them later. So that might be the best fit for the situation that you're in. But knowing what you don't know and figuring out how to figure it out is really, really crucial, I think, when you're at the beginning of anything. I wanted to talk about the sort of more invisible parts of an entrepreneurial business model. We were talking about everyone here makes beautiful and fine things, but there has to be a point of entry to their brand. So can we talk about the sort of the introductory point and what that looks like?
Well, for me, I make furniture and lighting, but I also do some smaller home accessories, and I launched with 6 pieces. And one of those pieces was just a really simple tray that I was making myself, and that we were able to leverage that into a little bit of press, and we exclusively sold trays. We were like a tray company for the first 3 months of my business, and that's how we got enough capital to continue to design products and roll out new products. And so if you can have something small and accessible, because whenever you're a new business, and I think we've all said this, whenever we're at a trade show, people come up to you, the first thing they say is, how many times have you shown at this show? Or how many years have you been in business? Because the last thing they want to do is give several $1,000s to someone who is not going to deliver, who's not going to even be around for them to come after for their product. So they have to kind of establish this trust in you. So the best way to do that is to have products at all different price points. So there's an entry-level price point. They can come in, they can buy something, they see your quality, they see your customer service, they see the packaging. I mean, it's this whole story that you're telling. And then what we found is over the years, those people come back and they're buying bigger and more expensive pieces, and then they're telling their friends about us. And that's really the way that you establish your reputation in the industry, no matter what industry you're in, jewelry, fashion. You need to have different things that you can present to people so they're not just taking a huge gamble on you right out the gate.
I was going to say one misconception that people see specifically with my business is they see the gold and the platinum. They're like, wow, like you're doing gold and platinum. This is great. And I'm always like, well, I didn't start there. I had that dream and the vision, but that's super expensive. So I started with silver. I started with small pieces. I started doing production work for other jewelers. I was doing, side hustles and all these different things until I could afford to do the gold and platinum. So sometimes it's very easy to say, oh wow, she got there so easily and it's so quick, but it's really not. There's a lot of steps and transitions that are super important to accept and work toward in order to get that big end goal. Because ultimately, I would love to just do gold and platinum, but it's not necessarily realistic yet. But that's the future goal, and right now, it's doing the production in silver and doing these other things that help get to that point. So keeping in mind that everything is a transition, and that's okay. You don't have to jump in and I've seen people that jump in and they don't even have a brand yet, but they buy this fancy packaging, and it's awesome, but you don't have a client base. So you've just wasted money sitting there and waiting for customers, but you have no customers. So start small and then build versus jumping in, spending all your money and going out of business, because I've seen that happen a lot.
And Katy also mentioned press, which I will say over and over and over and over again, that you guys are in the best position for press. Like, trust me, I hardly have time to come up with new products, but in school, you are required to have something really cool, really fresh, really conceptual. You have access to like photography students and studios, which is really hard to find and really expensive to rent. And you have like a really good time to develop a story that you can have this, there's like a whole way that you can have a press package for your products, whether that is photography, graphic design, jewelry, like anything. And the press company, they're hungry for good, fresh work. And it's really hard to come by. I know that we see things all the time, but they're always looking for new things, And I think that's how I got started. I was a beast, all that SCAD emails that you guys get, I would read all of them because there's so many opportunities for scholarships, for press, and I would just contact magazines all the time and send all my school projects, and that's like how I was able to get press attention, which led to people believing that I was a real business, but I was in grad school. So
yeah. This actually gets me really excited because kids at Harvard, kids at all these Ivy League business schools, they start their businesses while they're in school. You guys are more creative and just as smart as those kids, and take this opportunity to do that. Leverage your professors, leverage all of the learnings that you have here and the time that you have, because you'll never have it again, time like this. And I'm telling you, there are people graduating from Harvard and, Stanford, and they're trying to start fashion companies, and they're trying to start furniture companies and jewelry companies. You guys are the executors. You have these ideas, and you can execute them, way better than these kids at Ivy League business schools. So go for it now. Yeah.
And you can definitely fake it. You don't have to be a full-time business while in school. You can be doing a retail job. You can start a business like your project where you want to sell things. It starts slow,
And perfect your press pitch. So use your professional practices classes to build a beautiful portfolio. Half the time, whenever I get a resume, I don't even look at it. I'm looking at the portfolio, and that's exactly how editors are. Editors are not reading the beautiful email you sent them. You still need to write a really compelling email, because editors, most of the time, I've found, they want to pull your words because it's your vision. So make sure you have a really tight pitch for things, but make sure you have beautiful photos if your industry is visual. One thing I would recommend, there's a book by Amy Fleury called Recipe for Press, and I read that book right after I started my business, and it's how I built all of my press pitches, and it was extremely helpful.
And a word on press too. People ask me how many pitches I get, and I say a lot, and they say, how many do you use? And I say the good ones, and it's true. I think I try to fit every single good pitch into the magazine, or we have 3 magazines, the group of magazines, wherever it fits best. It's very rare that I don't find a place for something that's good, and the hallmark of a good pitch is a pitch that is crafted in mind of the departments of the magazine, that I can tell that somebody reads the magazine, that somebody has thought about who they're pitching, where it should end up, what company it'll be in. It's very obvious when someone hasn't done that. So you have to realize when you have the tunnel vision of an entrepreneurial project, it's the most important thing to you. And at the point when you turn to pivot and share it with other people, you have to sort of expand your mind into thinking about what they need, you're filling a need for them. And it is a need. Magazines and all press outlets are really hungry for good, authentic content. So at that point, it becomes a collaboration. It becomes, how do I tell your story in a way that also suits our audience? So it's that's the thing I imagine anyway about being an entrepreneur, is that at that moment that you turn to share it, it's not just yours anymore. And that's a trust relationship that you're reaching out as well. But the most important thing from where I stand is that it's obvious that somebody has considered what they're asking me to do and kind of entering into that agreement.
Yeah, I think that's so true, because when I was in school, I was obsessed with, for architecture and interior design, like the Zine website, and I was obsessed with Wallpaper magazine. And I would look at their blogs daily, I would get their magazines and just look at what kind of photos and what kind of stories they were telling. And a lot of times when I was coming up with the product in school, I had envisioned, how would this look in their magazine? I know it sounds really vain, but it really helped me create an editorial piece, which I think in Savannah is important, because we're not in New York, like we're kind of like in the South, and we want to be able to share our work through internet, which is like millions and millions of people. So I think like being able to have, like, if you have a magazine that you really adore or a blog, like just envision your work there.
And you have to think about the company you keep. I know that, to Eleanor's point, doing anything entrepreneurial requires a borderline delusional self-belief at the beginning, and that's important. But it's also important to realize that nothing is made in a vacuum, nothing lives in a vacuum, nothing sells in a vacuum. And if you're going to be a viable business, you have to think about I don't think it's delusional at all to think about the magazine that you want to be in and to be able to see yourself there. If you can't think about that, you almost, why would you start a business? You have to be able to see the bigger picture and where you're headed. Because, we were talking backstage about the fact that what happens when you achieve the last page of your business plan? We were talking about that with Katy. What happens when what you do becomes bigger than the dreams that you had for yourself? And actually, can you talk a bit about the Incubator Program that you're a part of now?
Yeah, so I've gotten to a point, I've been in business for 7 years. We're growing, everything's great, but at the same time, I've kind of reached the end of my business knowledge. I feel like, how do I continue to grow? What's the next step? And just even forming my business, or my idea of what my business will be in 5 years, is really difficult, because I'm so wrapped up in my day-to-day, and I'm just trying to get orders out. I'm just trying to get new product ready for market. So I applied for this business incubator called the 10,000 Small Businesses Program, and it's run through Goldman Sachs. And it's basically just an accelerator that will help give people who don't necessarily have a business background kind of like a quick, it's like a 12-week program, and they give you an education, and then they put you in touch with mentors, and they put you in touch with investors. And so there are all kinds of programs out there like that across all industries. And so seek out those programs, because there are resources available. There are so many entrepreneurs that are just like you, that started out with an idea and they've built it into something big, and now they're being very generous with both their time and money, and they've built these programs to help you. So I think if you're going to start a business, first make sure you have the, write a business plan. And if you don't want to write a business plan, don't start a business, because you're going to have to continue to grow and learn. And if that's not part of something you want to do, it's going to be really difficult to succeed.
I don't have a business plan, and it is very difficult. So listen to Katy.
So once brands start to grow, the emails start to roll in. We were talking about this yesterday. People emailing you and asking you, can I work with you? Emailing you and pitching you on their own work. So I want to talk about the right way to do that and the wrong way to do that. So what is the best way that someone can approach you as a potential intern, employee, interested party, and get a good response?
Know the time and the place. We talked about this at dinner last night, actually, and I'll let you guys share about the trade show, because I thought that was kind of genius. But I think when you're approaching somebody that you want to work for, especially if they are the business owner, you need to put yourself in their shoes. We all don't have a lot of time. We don't have time to read really long emails. I love the phrase, if I had more time, I'd write you a shorter email. It takes a really long time to be concise in your thoughts, and I think it's worth it, especially when you're cold emailing somebody. I always love a warm intro. This is sort of tangential, but you never know who in your network knows someone that knows someone that knows someone, and a warm intro is so much better than a cold one.
Can you just say what a warm intro is?
Yeah, a warm intro is when somebody that knows this person that you want to work for introduces you. So they sort of, by relationships and networking, know that you're a good person to talk to. So anyway, yeah, but I would recommend put yourself in entrepreneurs' shoes or business owners' shoes. One of the things I actually learned at J. Crew from Mickey Drexler when he was the CEO there was that every business owner wants you to act like the business owner. So if you can put that hat on and approach getting a job that way, or even a mentorship that way, then I think you'll be successful in it. Does that make sense? Yeah.
I think because we're not large corporations, so I don't have an HR team. I'm the HR, I'm the shipping person, I'm the emailing. So there are a lot of things that I'm doing, and I try to have my morning for administrative work, so doing emails, but it is really, really, really difficult for me to get to everybody. Especially because I also get DMs, and I get emails, and then I get LinkedIn, and then Facebook messages. It's a lot. So do not feel offended, personally, if you don't hear it back right away, especially with smaller businesses, because we're trying really hard to keep everything afloat.
Yeah, on that note, one of the first things I do when I get an email from somebody who's interested in working with me is I search their name in Google. So think about that. Think about what you have out there, because if your portfolio pops up and it's great photos and it's great work and it's very clean, that's awesome. If your social media pops up and it's meh, that's not so good. So keep in mind that you might craft an amazing email, but as soon as I copy your name and put it into a search bar, that's what I'm actually going to look at more so. Then I might go back to your email and read some more things and look at your portfolio. But keep in mind that it's not just what you're sending, it's what's out there that I'm going to see. And that really counts, because that tells me more about you as a person than your email that you've crafted for me.
I would suggest, if your Instagram profile is not a business profile, to just go ahead and make it private when you're looking for jobs, because I've gotten a lot of, I search people, and if it's a bunch of, anyway, you know what you should have out there and what you shouldn't. But I wanted to speak to what Eleanor was saying about trade shows. So we spend all of our marketing budget goes into trade shows. So we do 2 to 4 trade shows a year, and sometimes people will come up to me, and I'm there to sell. I've spent a lot of money both on the booth space, the investment of what's in the booth, all of our marketing materials, paying for travel for our employees. So I'm sitting there with this huge investment, and people will come up and talk to me, and, we're 10 minutes into a conversation, and I'm thinking, this guy is going to buy so much furniture. Like, this is awesome. And then he's like, I'm a furniture designer. Here's my card. I'd love to work with you. I'm never going to call that person because he has not been transparent that he's here to benefit himself. If you want to approach someone at a trade show, which it is a great time to go see people, see what they're doing, find brands that you like, I think that's fantastic, but know that the person who is running the business and even their employees are there to sell. So, don't take up a lot of their time. If you're interested in working for them, the best thing to do would be to drop a card, say, I'm going to send you an email. I know that you're very busy right now, but I love your company. I'd love to talk about working with you. That's great, like 30 seconds, and then move on, because that person is just trying to make the most of their investment. And don't take all of their marketing collateral. We paid for that.
Take a picture.
Take a photo.
I just wanted to end, we'll have some questions in a minute, but I wanted to end by asking everybody if they're, to share a piece of advice that has kind of guided your business, and maybe one that you would pass on to this audience as well.
Learn how to say no, because some opportunities sound amazing, but they're not for you. And also, I once heard this speaker, and he said, learn the fable of the apple tree. And it's kind of long, but I'm going to shorten it. When you first start, you're trying to keep this little tree alive. It's a little seed. Then when you get bigger, it's a big tree, but you're still trying to keep this tree alive, not paying attention to the fruit. And then when you're really big, you're not paying attention to the fruit that's on the tree. You're trying to pick the ones up off the ground because that's where you were initially. So it's kind of long and long-winded, but always pay attention to where you are in your business and to where you're going, and pick the best parts of where you are and not necessarily everything, because you can't do everything. You will not have enough time to do everything. So pick the most ripe fruits or pick the best looking tree, not always everything, because you won't have time.
I would say learn to be a hustler early on. Like, don't feel like you're too good for anything. I am literally wearing Goodwill clothes like every day to work, and I'm mopping my floor at the end of the day. There are a lot of things that starting a business and doing a business, there are a lot of tasks that you don't expect that you're gonna be doing. And I don't wanna draw this like amazing, social media is different, you guys. We're trying to sell, we're trying to create a brand, and a lot of people come to me and is like, oh my gosh, this looks amazing. And I'm like, yes, but come by the studio and see what a day like in the studio is, because it is a lot of work that I'm not showing exactly on social media, and a lot of businesses are like that. Try to like contact people that you really like, especially if you're like traveling to a city, especially if it's not a busy season, you can try to get a visit to the studio and really learn. And that really helped me prepare for understanding that a lot of it's like being able to show like a good brand, but there's a lot of legwork behind it, a lot of like less glamorous, very less glamorous work behind it. Yeah.
I think definitely know your strengths and weaknesses, and the moment that you have an income source, hire an accountant, because unless you have a background in that, that is the #1 way that you can screw up your business. But I think you also need to know that if you're going to start running a creative company, you're not going to sit around being creative 5 days a week. In fact, I spend less than half a day a week actually designing furniture, and I'm working on just administrative things and all sorts of a million different hats that you have to learn to wear through the business. So just know that it's great and it's wonderful, and you should definitely do it. But know that you're going to have to learn to do a lot of different things. And as whenever you find out that you don't like to do something or you don't know how to do something, if you can build your business to a point where you can hire people, then hire them to do the things that you don't want to do or that you don't know how to do.
So mine is sort of twofold. Learn how to ask for what you want. Because you don't get what you don't ask for, and always come with an ask. I also think that, while you have to learn how to say no, you have to learn when not to hear no. Because if you're going to start your own business, you're going to hear no all the time, especially if you're raising money and especially if you're a woman. So you need to learn, the mind is a muscle, right? And you need to exercise it, and you need to become really mentally strong, and learn when not to hear the word no.
I love that.
Emily, can I say one more thing that
Sure.
I forgot? I think we didn't really talk much about this, but having a small business, like one of the best parts is like the community that we're in, because it is so important to have like really healthy community. And everybody that I know that is in small business and furniture and lighting and so on, I am just so surprised and honored that people are so open and transparent with their vendors, with their clientele, press list, and all of those things. So like, please don't go into the business thinking that you can do all of it alone. There's like so much that you can learn from your peers, and it starts now, because we all know that friend with all those ideas and is always trying to like come up with new things and doing them. Like, those are the people you want to be around with.
Yeah. And I think that all of you being around you last night, it's just there is a little bit of an infectious energy that comes with being around people who are trying to make something happen. All art started as an idea, and it gets made material, and these people are doing that on a larger scale. I mean, they're making a life for themselves, and I think that that's something that a lot of, well, let's do a show of hands. How many people still want to do their own business at some point?
It's really fun.
A couple more. Good. Thank you so much to all of these entrepreneurs, and thank you all for being here.